What's going on, guys? It's Nick with Frisella Nursery, and I'm a plant care specialist here. We're going to run through some different soil mixes for houseplants. There are different soil mixes that you can construct on your own. Some of them are more beneficial for succulents versus like something like a fern that requires a lot of water. It just depends on the ingredients that you put in and the ratios. Stick around for the whole video, and hopefully these tips help you with your houseplants. To start off, let's dive into some of these materials that I'll be using. This right here is just a standard potting mix. It's got organic matter, a little bit of bark, and a little bit of perlite, which perlite is just kind of expanded rock material. It provides drainage, and same with the bark. Materials like this are very water absorbent, so they're very good for plants like ferns and things that need a lot of water to stay healthy. This is sand. This you don't need a whole lot of. It helps provide drainage, and it kind of keeps the pore space of the soil wide enough for roots to get through and moisture to run through it easily for things like cacti and succulents where the water doesn't need to stay in the soil as long. And then here I have these. This is vermiculite, which is a different version of perlite basically. It's just another expanded rock material. This is a little bit more eco-friendly because this is naturally sourced, while perlite is kind of a man-made substance. And then this is charcoal. Charcoal's, in my opinion, one of the best ingredients you can put into your soil mixes, inside and outdoors. It just provides a lot of like antioxidant properties. So if you have some like stagnant water in your pots, these will help clean the water, and it helps kind of aerate the soil a little bit. It's kind of like a natural slow release fertilizer. Different ratios will be beneficial for certain things. Like I said, more of the mossy kind of substances are going to help retain moisture, while the other kind of chunky and hard substances are going to help the water move through the pot easier. Now that we have our plants ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and put them in this pot. And usually I wouldn't put things in a pot like this because there's no drainage hole on the bottom. So there's nowhere for the water to go. I'm just going to use this so you can see what I'm doing and see the mixes as I'm putting them in here. This one's a bromeliad, so it takes a little bit more of a mossy mix, but it still likes to be aerated. So I'm going to use a lot of charcoal on this one just to keep that water clean. Usually I would use a bark mix, but I don't have any bark mix at the moment, which is totally fine. This will work just as well. So first I'm going to start off using some of this mossy mix. I'm going to do probably a couple handfuls of this. I'm going to put some of this in here, and this already has some perlite and bark in here too, so I'm not going to use as much as I usually would. Sometimes you can get mixes that have like just a mossy mix, and that will hold a lot of moisture, so you don't want to use just straight moss unless it's a fern or something that really likes those kind of humusy mixes. And then I'm going to put some charcoal in here. I'm going to do a couple handfuls of this. These are really rough measurements. I would say a ratio would be like 2 parts of the moss mix, 1 part charcoal, and then 1 part will be some of this vermiculite, just to add extra aeration to it. So mix that up a little bit. Looks good. And then just gonna grab a little bit of this vermiculite. Okay, now that I've gotten this filled up enough, just another disclaimer, this is not standard procedure for planting and propagating. Go ahead and check out our video in the description below on propagating. This is just purely for soil education. So I'm just gonna stick it in here, into this mix. This turned out really nicely. This is a really good mix for aeroids like anthuriums, bromeliads, some like vining plants will do fine in this too. Those vermiculite particles are going to help keep some airspace in the soil and kind of help the water move through a little bit so it doesn't get soggy. And if it does get a little bit soggy, that charcoal kind of helps counteract those bad microbes and keep it clean. All right, now we're gonna get started on our succulent mix. This also works for cacti and other plants that store their water a little bit more in their systems. Okay, so the materials that I'm gonna use are the moss mix, the sand, charcoal, and the vermiculite. And I'm gonna use a mix, probably one part each on these, just because you don't want a lot of that water retaining soil and you wanna have a lot of drainage. You could also use like a pumice mix or like a rock mix instead of the charcoal or the vermiculite, just to add that extra aeration. And I'm gonna use a big chunk of this sand. This texture, you want it to be really gritty. You don't want it to be soft. You want it to be kind of like a chunky, like it kind of hurts to move around. Having a little bit less of that water retaining mix also helps keep the soil from getting hydrophobic, which means if you let it go too long between waterings, it'll get kind of chunky, and then it's harder to break up, and then the water just doesn't flow through it very well. It just kind of floats above the water. So this helps kind of break it up and keep it from doing that. And I have a little succulent here. I'm just gonna stick it in this. And again, this is not a propagation video. There you go, that's your succulent mix. Again, it needs to be gritty, a lot less of water retaining materials, and something to help break up that soil. So that was it for the succulent mix, and next we're gonna move on to the standard houseplant mix, which is good for, you know, your standard houseplants like monsteras, ficuses, things like that. And in this one I'm gonna use this golden pothos, which is a very common houseplant. It doesn't take much material, you just need some of this potting mix again. Again, this is just a standard kind of mossy potting mix. I'm gonna do probably 3 parts of this, and I'll probably add a little bit extra, probably like a half a part vermiculite, just to help with the drainage again. And then I'm just a big fan of charcoal. I think it helps with all kinds of problems. I think it helps fighting fungus gnats. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I've seen. It just helps keep the moisture a little bit more even. This one's got a very nice mix of fine material, gritty material, and those big chunks. I'm just gonna put this in here, cover up some of those roots, and there you have it. That is your average houseplant mix, super simple. All right, just to wrap it up, we're gonna recap. For the standard succulent mix, we have the charcoal, vermiculite, sand, and the peat moss mix. And then for the aeroid, we have moss mix, charcoal and vermiculite. And then for the houseplant mix, we have mostly the moss mix, vermiculite, and charcoal. Again, thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe for our next videos. I hope that this video helps you with your plants at home, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.